So how can you pretty much stop caring what other people think about you? This is going to be such a liberating thing when you finally get to this point where you don't really care what other people think or say about you. You will get to a point of freedom in your life where you don't worry about how you're perceived by your peers or even by the world, and you're just free to do what you feel that you want to do, whether that's, your passion, or whether that's something that you want to experiment with, or whatever it is. And I want to approach this in a few ways. Firstly, we need to understand that humans are pretty much the only animal that has an ego. We're the only animal that really identifies so strongly with what's going on in our mind, that we actually become so attached to this idea of who we are that we literally truly believe that we are a physicist. I am John, the physicist. I earn X amount of money and I behave in this particular way in society. And if I don't do that, then people are going to think differently of me. People might think I'm slightly weird, or that I'm behaving in a way that a physicist shouldn't behave, and you start to identify so strongly with this ego, this perspective on life, that you limit yourself in a huge number of ways. It means you can't really decide how to live your life because you're trapped by the ego, by this perception of what you should be doing, that whoever's given it to you, maybe it was your parents, society, teachers, friends, the media, for example. But you get trapped in this idea of who you are and how you should behave. Humans are the only animals that do this. You don't see a lion worrying about the opinions of sheep or even other lions. They just do what they do. They just do them. They live their lives how they want to live them. They don't worry about how they are perceived by other people. That's just unheard of in the animal kingdom. But for some reason, humans, along with other, there are positive benefits and things that we've developed, but there are also negative traits. And the egoic mind is probably one of the most destructive things that we have developed over the years. The egoic mind has been responsible for all sorts of things, catastrophes, wars, disputes, religious battles, and all sorts of different destructive patterns that humans have exhibited over the years. Pretty much all can be traced down to the ego and to this complex, I guess you could say, prism, this sort of prism through which we view the world, filtered through our beliefs, our emotions, and what we've been told. So when you learn how to dissolve that, to dissolve the ego, and to just be completely at peace with who you are and what you are, that in that moment you stop caring what other people think about you, because you realize that it doesn't really matter. Their opinions on how you should behave are based on their ideas of who you should be. But of course you can decide who you are, so you don't need to worry or even care about the opinions of other people, because they have no physical effect or relation to you. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't take advice. You should take advice. And if somebody says, hey, I've noticed that you're behaving in a certain way and I think it's bad because of this, you should listen to that. That is good advice, and that's constructive criticism, right? These things are very useful. And it's actually good to ask your peers and your friends, family, etc., for their opinion on certain things, like, am I behaving correctly in this situation, or what should I be doing? It's good to ask for advice, of course, but don't let the opinions of people shape what you're doing too much. And when I say that, it's mainly the people that are negative or critical of what you're doing. If you allow their opinions to shape what you're doing, you're going to massively hold yourself back in huge ways. Like if I allowed every negative comment on YouTube to hold me back from what I was doing, I would have stopped making videos within the first few months. Because there are always people, when you're doing something that you love doing, or when you're trying to be successful, when you're striving for something, there's going to be people that don't like that. Maybe it challenges them. They feel like on edge because they can't or won't do the same thing, so they feel like they need to attack you, because again, it's the ego. It's the ego saying, I don't want to be successful, I won't be successful, whatever, so therefore I have to defend my position in this sort of ego castle. I have to defend this position by attacking that other person who's doing well, because if they're doing well, it makes me look bad. And the whole thing is based around the ego. Whereas if you just let that all go and just see the reality of the situation, then none of that arises. There's no conflict, there's no stress, there's no drama. And a side effect of that, quite one of the less important side effects actually, is that you just don't care what people think. It doesn't affect you. As long as you know what you're doing, in terms of, as long as you know where you're headed, what your goals are, what your passions are, and you're following sort of, as long as you're in line with that passion, then really doesn't matter what people think in any way. As long as you're not doing something, you know, really, really dangerous or really harmful to other people, then it doesn't matter. People can think what they like, but it shouldn't affect what you're doing. Done.